You're watching WHSV News 3. 11 minutes of nonstop news and weather starts right now.
A poisoned letter sent to a lawmaker in Washington. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dion Guillory.
And I'm Allison Bruner. We start with that breaking news tonight. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid says a letter containing ricin was sent to Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker. Reid did not say when the letter was sent. Mail addressed to congressional officers are screened at an off-site building. We also have breaking news tonight in the Boston bombing investigation.
Yeah, the feds believe the pressure cooker bombs were used in the attack. Here's what we know right now. Bomb material is being tested at Quantico. There's a $50,000 reward. The president will be in Boston on Thursday for a service for bomb victims. And Boston University says one of its grad students is the third victim killed. We're learning that she is a Chinese national. Marcy Gonzalez is live in Boston tonight to kick off our live team coverage on the latest in the Boston bombings. Marcy.
Good evening. Still no suspect, still no answers in what the president calls a terror attack, and so many others simply call heartbreaking. Just outside of Boston, American flags are dimly illuminated by candlelight, but the spirit and resilience of this city and our nation shine so brightly at this vigil for 8-year-old victim Martin Richard.
Everybody knows them, everybody loves them. It's just unthinkable.
In Medford, Massachusetts, the unthinkable is leaving this mother unable to hold back tears, remembering her 29-year-old daughter, Crystal Campbell, also killed in the blast.
I couldn't ask for a better daughter. I can't believe this has happened.
It is the agony and the questions reverberating through Boston tonight. How and why could someone put 2 bombs along the race route designed and placed to kill? ABC News has obtained this photo of a backpack the FBI believes one of the bombs was hidden in. Investigators now believe one of the IEDs was built using a kitchen pressure cooker packed with wires, an electronic circuit board, nails, and ball bearings that pierced victims' bodies and severed limbs. And while the design, experts say, is Al-Qaeda 101, investigators are baffled. No individual or group has taken responsibility.
The person who did this is someone's friend, neighbor, coworker, or relative. Someone knows who did this.
The FBI relying on the public tonight, saying more than 2,000 tips have already come in, and they are following up on each one. Live in Boston, Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News. Now back to you.
Our thanks to Marcy. Breaking new details tonight from the people who were on the ground when the explosions happened. One man being treated in a hospital describing those first seconds after the very first blast.
And all of a sudden it was like a cannon, went off. And honest to God, at first I didn't even think anything of it. I thought, maybe some bad fireworks or something like that, because it just didn't even dawn on me that there would be an explosive device or a bomb there.
This also getting to the doctors treating these victims. Listen as one doctor describes what it was like to treat so many.
I started feeling it, sort of feeling the suffering that I just witnessed, and thinking about it in the larger context. Started talking to my colleagues about the things they'd seen, and I think that was the toughest part.
New at 11, as we learn more about the Boston bombings, runners are lacing up their shoes in honor of the victims.
WHSC's Stephanie Escobar explains how some Valley runners paid tribute. She continues our team coverage.
Allison, runners in the Valley are supporting victims in Boston, even if it's from miles away. This group is reflecting on this tragedy and thankful for the gift of running.
With a moment of reflection,
take out a moment of silence for the victims in yesterday's bombing up in Boston.
And a dedication.
So let's do this first mile for Boston, okay?
Runners like Mike Betts are remembering victims of the Boston bombings with every stride. He says many of them are probably still stunned by this tragedy.
I'm sure they're not out running today, but we will. We're gonna take time out and we're gonna run with them. Okay. Even though they're not with us, we're running with them.
9 people are joining him. They usually run on Tuesdays, but in the aftermath of the attacks, it's a must.
It's just a further inspiration to go out and be active and to run and to be there for those who cannot now.
Richard Rossi, who's also running, says he can't imagine what folks in Boston are going through.
And when you're going towards the finish line, and to have something like that happen, it's just taking part of your life away.
That's why he says he will be more vigilant in any upcoming race.
Overall, any race, even the smallest race, if you see anything suspicious or anything like that, I think we'll all be on high alert.
Bet says this won't stop him from going to a race.
We're not going to let any occurrence, any attack keep us from doing what we love.
The Grand Caverns 5K is coming up on Friday. That will also be dedicated to the victims. In the newsroom, Stephanie Escobar, WHSV.
Thank you, Stephanie. Just shows you just how something like this can touch so many people, and we just continue to be resilient and move forward. Now, runners in other parts of the nation also laced up their shoes.
A group in Atlanta is showing support for the people of Boston. Dozens of people ran a mile of silence to honor the marathon bombing victims. Runners say they won't be sidelined by the tragedy.
It made me both mad and sad at the same time that someone would take advantage of such a wonderful experience of the Boston Marathon and turn it into such a tragedy. The institution of running is so positive and encouraging and has meant so much to my life that I can't imagine anyone wanting to tear that down.
The Mile of Silence was organized by the Big Peach Running Company.
U.S. senators paused to remember the victims of the Boston bombings. The Senate chaplain saying a special prayer for the victims, and afterwards, the Republican and Democrat leaders read opening remarks reflecting on the tragedy.
These horrific attacks are a grim reminder of the hatred and contempt that many continue to harbor in their hearts, not only for our nation and its freedoms, but for innocent human life.
We are still reeling from the senseless violence at the Boston Marathon yesterday. The one thing, though, we are united in is sympathy for the victims of this senseless attack and the families who are suffering today, the victims. Adding to the horror of this tragedy are the questions of who did this and why.
Several countries, including Cuba and Egypt, are condemning the bombings. Russia is offering the United States any help needed as the investigation continues. And this just into our newsroom. Tomorrow, the Senate will get to work on a vote on a bipartisan plan to expand background checks to more gun buyers.
The Harrisonburg Police Department says it partners with the city for some major events in the area. A lieutenant tells us there's a lot of planning that happens weeks in advance of events. The lieutenant says everyone has a responsibility in keeping neighbors safe. He says he hopes people will work hard to keep other explosions from happening. The Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, gives free emergency preparedness training classes to anyone in the area. The classes teach people how to react to an emergency. Basic medical procedures and team building exercises are taught. The classes are offered in the fall and spring. We have a link about those training classes on our web channel. Just head to WHSV.com, click on the story.
And after events like the Boston bombings, Americans are always willing to open their hearts and give to those in need. And folks from the Red Cross office here won't be heading to Boston because they tell us workers there are well trained. Any donation should be made to the National Red Cross page through its website. You can find a link to that on our web channel, WHSV.com, under our Find It button. And of course, you know you can count on WHSV for continuing coverage of the explosions at the Boston Marathon. Our Daybreak team will have new information on this still breaking news story starting at 5 a.m. And then remember, Good Morning America picks it all up at 7.
Our hour-by-hour forecast lets you know when inconvenient weather is ahead and what it means for your plans. WHSV's First Alert Storm Team.
Well, it was a pretty nice Tuesday evening. Hope you had a chance to get outside and enjoy it. Very mild outside. What we're watching right now, well, this line of showers and a couple of thunderstorms. Most of this into Grant County right now and the very western portion of Pendleton County towards the Seneca Rocks area, headed towards Upper Tract. Most of Grant County starting to see some lightning with this. A lot of this headed towards the more Warfield area, and most of the lightning is towards Mount Storm and the northern portion of Grant County. Most of the lightning and thunderstorms that we will see will be in the highlands for tonight. The rest of the area, we'll just watch that band of showers move through the area. 66 degrees still outside our studio, but notice that humidity climbing into the 70s. And once those showers do move through, that's really going to set us up for some fog continuing to stay in place overnight and into early tomorrow morning. So do be careful with the driving once again as we have some fog early tomorrow morning. Take a look at these mild temperatures. 63 in Stewart's Draft right now, 65 for Stanton, 63 in Timberville, and a balmy 71 degrees still in Petersburg. Slightly warmer in the higher elevations, a little bit more instability, and that's why I do think that's where we will see the bulk of the thunderstorm activity. So front still way out into the Ohio Valley, but these showers and storms are kicking off ahead of it. This line is narrowing a bit, so that, and I do expect this to weaken as it moves over some of the mountains into some more stable air. So I do think most of this will be in the form of rain overnight. So midnight, starting to see this activity, and then this line does push through the area 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Maybe a couple rumbles of thunder, but the better chance would be into the highlands. Once again, that does set us up for fog early tomorrow morning. That will mix out. We may see a few peaks of sunshine, but should see a few more clouds in place for tomorrow. Another chance to see some showers and storms once again as we head into the late afternoon and into the evening. And I do think we'll see a little bit more activity than what this is showing here. Sometimes our forecast models have a little hard time, a little bit of difficulty picking up on some of this convective activity with some of those thunderstorms. But we are expecting those once again for tomorrow evening. Temperatures tonight, mid-50s into the highlands, almost into the upper 50s for the valley. And keep in mind, we will see those showers and a couple of thunderstorms overnight. Fog for early tomorrow morning, but temperatures into the mid-60s by the mid-morning, partly sunny skies. Lunchtime temperatures on the mild side, upper 60s. Temperatures will be where they were today for the most part, almost into the mid-70s for most of the area. So 73 into the highlands, 74 into the valley. We'll see a few peaks of sunshine, but mainly clouds tomorrow, and then that chance of scattered showers and maybe a few thunderstorms, especially as we head into the afternoon and the evening. Take a look as we head into the next 7 days. Warmer temperatures will be in place for our Thursday, 81 degrees. So into the lower 80s, only an isolated chance of a shower on Thursday, but we will see the winds pick up and those stay in place right into Friday. Friday will actually be a windier day, and that's when that cold front does make its way through the area, setting off another round of showers and thunderstorms. Looks to be Friday evening and possibly lingering into the overnight, but it does look to clear out by Saturday morning, giving us a sunny weekend, but slightly cooler into the 60s. Just a typical spring forecast.
But a busy couple days ahead for the weather department, looks like.
Absolutely. Keep the umbrella handy. Don't leave your sunroof open. And you might want to bring in the trash cans, especially for Thursday and Friday.
All right. Thanks, Aubrey. Our coverage of the Boston bombings going in depth tonight. We explain the cycles of trauma after tragedies and how we can all heal from it. New at 11, we are learning more about the Boston bombings, incidents like this causing trauma for many people. Joining us tonight is Barry Hart, Professor of Trauma, Identity, and Conflict Studies at Eastern Mennonite University. Barry, thank you for coming in tonight.
Good to be here.
We were talking earlier, and so these bombings, is kind of bringing in the cycle of trauma, which is something a lot of other countries are used to, but we're not.
That's correct. Many other countries are used to this, but for us, it's new, it's frightening, and obviously it's tragic. And I think what we experience here is people don't know why this has happened. And there are many causes, I'm sure, and people are looking into that. And I think the president has addressed this, and it's the right tone. People need to understand that these events occur, and we need to know how to deal with them. And one way is not to deny them. They're very real, they're out there, of course, they're on media all the time, and we see these events. At the same time, what do we do in our own context, our own settings about these particular events? Do we deny that they happened? Do we continue to look at the bombings over and over again? Do we avoid talking about it in our family context or in our churches or mosques or our temples? No, we really need to address this, pay attention to this. This is something we need to be aware of. We need to know how to respond. And I was just talking to my children about this an hour ago. And I was asking what was being talked about in school. I had talked to them yesterday about it. And so it's not something we're not saying in our home. We're speaking about it, we're addressing it, and the majority of people in this country and in the world respond in a very resilient way to these issues. Resiliency, bouncing back from a tragic situation like this. Obviously, the people that were directly impacted are having to deal with this in a unique way, and that traumatic event has impacted their lives deeply. The rest of us, we're all different, and we all respond differently, and that's good. We just need to pay attention to our response.
And you mentioned the word resilience, which is something that's brought up a lot after events like this and disasters and tragedies like that. Now, you mentioned talking about it. Is that the best way to deal with it? How can we deal with this?
Right. Well, talking is important. We do that naturally. We do that in our family context, in our school settings, in our religious institutions and so forth. There's talking. There's also ritual. I mean, a lot of people right now are praying about this. There are rituals in churches and mosques and in other places where people are paying attention to this. They're acknowledging that this has happened. And so there may be ways that in a particular culture or a particular religious institution that they know how to ritualize this, to pray about it, to be sensitive to what's happening. And again, not to push it aside. You can't push it aside. It's there, it's in front of us, so we have to pay attention to it.
Okay, one final question. We're almost out of time. The city of Boston says it will move forward with the marathon despite of what happened. Do you feel that showing whoever is responsible that we're going to live life the way we know it is the right way to do? Is just moving forward?
Absolutely, and ask any Bostonian and they'll tell you we're going to move forward on this. The point is safety needs to occur. And I think in any large event that we have in the near future and into the distant future, we're going to have to pay attention to safety issues. And I think that's going to happen in the next Boston Marathon, but you can be assured it's going to be run.
All right. Barry Hart, Professor of Trauma, Identity, and Conflict Studies at Eastern Mennonite University. Thanks for spending a little time with us, giving us a little insight on this.
You're quite welcome.
Some very helpful information. Harrisonburg City Schools presenting its budget to the school board, while the superintendent isn't expecting a budget battle.
New at 11 tonight, Harrisonburg City Schools presenting its budget to the school board.
This 1 week after presenting it to the city council. Superintendent Dr. Scott Kisner says he's encouraged that the city manager put it in his budget to fully fund the school board's request. The school budget is 2.5% more than last year. Dr. Kisner says the schools will expand STEM programs, increase enrollment, and teacher salaries.
In difficult times, you have to innovate and look for creative ways to improve learning, and our budget does that.
Next week, the public hearing will be on the city council budget. The city is expected to pass the budget in a few weeks. Kisner remains optimistic about the city's school budget being passed. The trial of the man accused of shooting another man in a case prosecutors call road rage is back in court tomorrow. The victim, Robert Crawford, testified admitting he was the aggressor but only slapped Rudy Dean Jr. The first responding officer also took the stand. The trial is expected to last through the end of the week.
There's just a little more than half an hour until a ceremonial candle is blown out to mark 6 years since the shootings at Virginia Tech. Flowers and wreaths were placed on each stone at the victim's memorial on school grounds. On April 16, 2007, Sung-Hee Cho killed 32 people and then himself on the Blacksburg campus. And we'll be